Well, I continue here with 815B, and it still is the chain of the mirror. Today I am presently filming in Praha, in the Czech Republic. It's a very lovely yard around here, and it's situated just next to the Jewish cemetery from the 16th century. We are in the town of many famous people. Mozart lived not far from here, and of course this was once upon a time a great city in the mighty empire of the Habsburgs, stretching all the way to the Philippines, the southern end of the Hope of Good Hope, and South America, North America, all over the place. A mighty empire. There is an expression in Swedish: can you eat the cookie and keep the cookie? And that is one existentialist question that Rudolf Gachet is asking in this book, The Chain of the Mirror. And Derrida and Gachet seem to be in concordance there, that you can actually both eat the cookie and have the cookie. So you can have reflection, you can reflect upon things, but that doesn't matter that you get rid of your subjectivity. And that is, I think, a Gordian knot that no Western philosopher has approached to that great extent as just Derrida. Fichte actually did it as well. So there is an interesting predecessor when it comes to this reflexivity problem. Let me give you a quote here. This is from the beginning, and Gachet wants to define reflection. To the extent that transcendental philosophy lays claim to reflecting the a priori conditions of all knowledge, it must also reflect on the ground proper of philosophy, and thus become the medium of self-reflection of philosophy. In the thinking of thinking, what Aristotle called noesis noesios, reflexivity serves at once as a medium, the method, and the foundation by which philosophy grounds itself within itself. I think that is very apt. It's perfectly put about the problem. Why, you love IKEA. Isn't that fantastic? Going to have my little abode. So you can have the cookie and you can eat the cookie, and I think most of us, not only philosophers but all thinkers, say when you are being reflective, you cannot be the other thing, the thing that you reflect upon. And you have to make a choice. So you have to choose to eat the cookie or to keep the cookie. You can't have them both. I would say possibly quantum mechanics is the greatest proof you can have them both. You can have, so to speak, complete non-locality, nothing is situated, and you can have the most definite location ever possible. and they both go in at the very same time. It's not a defect of quantum mechanics / the world that you cannot determine. It's an asset. And on top of that, you can also have determination when needed. So what quantum mechanics is getting rid of is actually unlawful, unnecessary, and I'd say even painful limitations. It's an opening up of what used to be more defined, determined. And that is also how I once upon a time approached the subject when I studied quantum mechanics. I realized that this is an opening up of things that space and time that has posed for a very long time too much of a limitation, too much of forcing the seer, the subject, and I say the object, into this. You have to choose. It has to be either or. Either you are the subject, and then you have the following limitations. When it comes to time, it will be a lag, it will be a distance, and then you go to space, you have the same limitations. You can only know what is on the subjective side, and what's on the objective side, that's out of bound. Ja, as we say in Swedish, don't touch that. There is a certain harshness in this either or mentality or gestalt of the Western thinking. It's almost like a child that has been beaten in its early childhood and lives with unnecessary limitations of what that person could be, develop into, and his trust in himself. And I really like the idea of the Greek trauma. And then that is one of the few inventions that is actually stemming from me. Goes hand in hand with amnesis that Heidegger put in, and the logocentric view of Derrida. But I say it's also trauma, a traumatized person that's starting to see things as a limitation, as an either or. And this either or hurts the person, and that's the original lack. And they try to supplement this by adding things. We mentioned a whole range of add-ons to make the world full again. Rudolf Gachet is saying that open up, everything is there for your pickings. The world's your lobster. You can have access both to the subject point, obviously, but at the same time, the objective point on the other side is accessible as well. Once again, quantum mechanics show that we have access to everything in the universe, and we have it without a lag. It is instantaneous. Could not be any more instantaneous. We will have to put in a superlative on the adjective, instantaneously, whatever that would be pronounced as. It's a cornucopia that Rudolf Gachet is presenting. And the ovations are stunning, coming from all parts. He also contacted many of the other great names when it comes to understanding Derrida, like Gayatri Spivak, P. Levy. John P. Levy was my first encounter with translators of Derrida into English. And not forgetting Barbara Johnson and Alan Bass, two other great names. He also goes into many different subjects here. Our logic we discussed earlier, the disavowed place between not and being, the law of the excluded middle. He calls this in page 148 on deconstruction, this chapter, and that is the subchapter deconstructive methodology. Listen up here. Here is really a gold mine of methods of deconstructing as well. Learn the methods and you have something you can use your whole life, whatever the discourse might be. Could be sport, could be society, philosophy, literature. This is an invaluable asset. I would say this is a book to be on the bookshelf. The paragraph is pre-ontological and pre-logical status of infrastructure. He here in this paragraph goes into what is before, so to speak, logic, when we get the limitations that are so destructive, limiting and shutting off a lot of knowledge. Because of the strategic predicament of the infrastructures, that is, because of their contextual and historical determination, it is, rigorously speaking, improper to refer to infrastructures as such, as I have done until now. The infrastructure as the specific complex organization responsible for the philosophical opposition of structure and genesis is only one possible infrastructure in the sense in which I use the term here. For reasons of exposition, however, I shall have to continue to speak of infrastructures in general in order to name everything that can account for the differences that I will be addressing. Now, in establishing the pre-ontological status of infrastructure in general, one encounters the same problem, owing to the fact that the qualification pre-ontological refers, rigorously speaking, to the character of one particular infrastructure with regard to the opposition in philosophy of being and nothingness, presence and absence. In spite of these strategic limits, the determination pre-ontological will nonetheless help us characterize infrastructures in general. But let me caution against any misunderstanding of pre-ontological, either in terms of temporal anteriority or in terms of Heidegger's fundamental ontology. And the last double phrase there, temporal anteriority, is to ward off the idea that there is an actual pre in the sense of being before. This is pre that never was before. How come? Well, let's put it this way. I'm going to find better ways to put this later, but this is the first start. So give me a chance with this. In the myth of logocentrism, there is an idea that has become a split. That idea is implicit. And for the split to exist, obviously it has to be before, in a temporal anterior area in time. It has happened before. Why is the cup cracked? Yesterday it was cracked. You establish a temporal structure in linear time. And once you've done that, then you have put your leg into it and you can't get it out. That's why we should be aware. As soon as there is a pre in the idea of being temporally anterior, then we have a problem, because this in a way never happened. There is no need for a split. The split in itself has its own history to be existing. Once the history gets unraveled and is shown to be nothing, there is nothing there, nothing of a history. Once the sharp division between absence and presence, existence and non-existence becomes looser, it becomes transparent and more transparent, and in the end it disappears. The structures lose their hold on reality. The gestalt, so to speak, disappears and turns out never to have been a gestalt. One could also say there is a force in the gestalt to unravel itself, but you need to give it a little help. You need to ponder these things, work it practically, I would say. By trying, you get a sense of balance in your body system and your mind system, and you start noticing that for every time you make this sharp division, there is a certain lack of knowledge. There is also a most perceptible friction in reality, something enforced on reality. You could call that a taint of the mirror. Yeah, you can call it the taint of the mirror. Something makes it less present, less valuable, less lovely. It should blossom. It should be like this lovely plant here, green and luscious even in February. This is the cornopia of Derrida and deconstruction. It is blooming in all ways, whereas this sharpness, this limitation and distance, because you can hardly see what is over there. Well, I can see, there's weird, I just took a picture and it's two yin and yang symbols and it's called veritas. Well, odd. But you know my grip, it's a sharpness, it's a division, and it goes with tension. one usually thinks once you get the sharpness you really want, the sharpness you are needing, desire, then you would lose something else. You will lose the generality. You will lose the global structure. This is very the same as attention. The idea that I need to shut my attention, shut everything that is around me, let that disappear so I can get into this one. It's an either or situation. Attention is not like that. It's not an either or situation. You can go into the most minuscule, you could be a surgeon operating on small neural structures in the hand using an obsidian glass. I saw that the other day on YouTube, I think. It's amazing, the sharpest thing in the universe. And you don't lose your contact with the surroundings. As a surgeon, you have contact with the nurses, what's behind you, where you are, what you're going to do tomorrow, your future, your body, and so forth. So this is also perceivably something that is shutting off. It's a limitation, and there is a very acute sense of walls, walling in, being tensed. Not having full liberty of doing as you want. Lack of freedom, I would say too. That's this is not pure volition, it's a limitation of volition. You can't do as you want anymore. Let me round up with one last quote. Here is a very good, it's a free partitive and it's well deserving a lecture by itself, but just to show you the cornucopia that is this book. He put in 3 paragraphs here, I can't read them all. Page 149, actually the next very page. See here, you find something interesting in each and every page. 1. It follows from this that 1. An infrastructure is not an existent. It is not, nor, however, is it simply absent. It is not a being present, however excellent, unique, and principal, or transcendent one makes it. This is from Derrida's Difference. Although not a being, all, it is not a non-being, meon, being present in neither a sensible nor an intelligible manner, and thus belonging to no region whatsoever. The infrastructure belongs to a space logically anterior. This is how we can say. Logically anterior and alien to what of the regulated contradictions of metaphysics. To quote once again, we must let ourselves be referred to an order that no longer refers to sensibility, but we are not referred to intelligibility either, to an ideality, nor not fortuitously associated with the objectivity of theorein or understanding. Here at once there are pointings to the theater and theorein, where we passively sit and look, and that's all the chance of actually watching the theater. The very act, you have to be passive, it's implied. But that infrastructure, it's not temporally anterior, it's something that is logically anterior. By sort of adhering to that, you get a sense of the limitation. And the limitation is actually all what it is to it. There is no knowledge to this one. It's a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding, you could say. Not ignorance in the ordinary sense, but something, once you let it loose, you open up. You feel a liberation, because there was nothing ever there to stop you from doing anything. The infrastructure of these limitations had never existed. It was a chimera. It's disappearing like fog in the early morning, that one could say. Once the sun comes and shines on the meadow, the fog disappears, and it is like it's never been there. And all you got is complete clarity, complete fullness, and you can have absence at the very same time. Well, that's a very poetic way from Gachet and Derrida also to put the observation on non-local behavior in quantum mechanics. And isn't that charm? I say thank you very much. Once more, The Tane of the Mirror, an excellent exposition of the inner thinking of Derrida. Highly recommendable. I bid you a very nice afternoon. It's just past 12, and see you soon again. Bye bye.